14th century. Around 1340 AD, the northern wind swept across the frozen fields of upland, carrying with it the sound of church bells that echoed through the pine forests like a warning rather than a welcome. Sweden in the 14th century was a land balanced between deep Christian devotion and lingering fear of the unseen. Faith was not a comfort alone. It was a boundary, a shield believed to stand between the living and horrors no eye wished to see. In this world lived Bridget Bergersdotter, later known to history as Saint Bridget of Sweden. She was not born into obscurity. From childhood, Bridget was surrounded by privilege, learning, and power, yet also by visions that disturbed her sleep and unsettled her soul. Even as a young girl, she saw Christ crucified, bleeding, suffering, not as a distant symbol, but as a living presence that followed her into waking life. By the time Bridget reached adulthood, she was married, a mother of 8, and a woman deeply respected at court. Yet her heart was not anchored in earthly status. It was drawn relentlessly toward the divine, and toward warnings she felt compelled to share, even when they terrified her. Sweden was a deeply sacramental society. Objects blessed by the church were believed to carry real spiritual weight. A blessed crucifix was not decoration. It was a reminder of Christ's suffering and a vessel of grace. To touch it in faith was believed to bring blessing. To touch it in sin, however, was something few dared to consider. And yet, one winter evening, Bridget would witness a vision that revealed exactly what happened when holiness met hypocrisy. If you were living in medieval Sweden, surrounded by fear of divine judgment and unseen forces, how seriously would you have treated sacred objects? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and follow for more historical faith stories. That evening, Bridget was in prayer within a small stone chapel, its walls darkened by centuries of incense smoke. Flickering candles cast trembling shadows across the crucifix mounted above the altar. The air was cold, but Bridget felt a warmth pressing against her chest, a familiar sign that a vision was approaching. She lowered her head, whispering the psalms, when suddenly her surroundings seemed to dissolve. The chapel faded, replaced by an overwhelming clarity that was sharper than waking sight. Before her stood a man, well-dressed, confident, his posture betraying wealth and social rank. Bridget knew, without being told, that he was a sinner who had not repented, a man who carried grave sin hidden beneath public respectability. She watched as this man approached a blessed crucifix, identical to the one she had been praying before moments earlier. His face showed no reverence. His hand reached out casually, almost impatiently, as though the crucifix were no more than carved wood. The instant his fingers touched the holy object, the vision changed. The crucifix burned, not with flame, but with a light so intense it felt alive. The man recoiled, but his hand appeared stuck, bound by an unseen force. From the cross, Bridget saw Christ's wounds open anew. Blood flowed, not dripping to the ground, but rising into the air like smoke, forming shapes that twisted into accusations. Then came the sound. A cry not human, not animal, echoed through the vision. Bridget felt it in her bones. The man's face contorted in terror as dark forms emerged from behind him, clinging to his back and shoulders like parasites. These were not vague shadows. They had form, grotesque, mocking, their eyes fixed not on the man, but on the crucifix itself, as if enraged by its holiness. Christ's voice filled the space, not loud, but absolute. "You touch me with hands unclean," the voice said. And and think my suffering is nothing." The man screamed as his hand finally tore free, leaving behind a blackened mark that spread across his skin like rot. The demons laughed, not in victory, but in possession. The vision ended with the man collapsing to the ground, surrounded by darkness, the crucifix standing untouched. Radiant and sorrowful, Bridget gasped and found herself once more in the chapel, her body shaking, tears streaming down her face. What would you have felt if you witnessed such a vision? Fear, guilt, or a call to change? Comment below and tell us how this moment would have affected you. Bridget remained kneeling long after the candles burned low. She understood that this vision was not given to satisfy curiosity or inspire fear alone. It was a warning, a revelation of spiritual reality hidden beneath ordinary actions. In medieval theology, sin was not merely moral failure. It was spiritual corruption that attracted darker forces. To approach sacred things without repentance was believed to invite judgment, not blessing. Bridget's vision revealed this belief in horrifying clarity. For days, she said nothing. She wrestled internally, questioning whether she should speak of it at all. Women visionaries were both revered and suspected. Her authority came from God, but her gender made her vulnerable to dismissal or accusation. Yet the weight of the vision pressed upon her conscience. Finally, Bridget confided in her confessor, a learned priest who had long guided her spiritual life. As she spoke, his expression darkened. He did not doubt her. Others had seen lesser visions. Bridget's, however, carried the unmistakable tone of divine rebuke. Words spread carefully, quietly as such warnings often did. Clergy began reminding the faithful of proper reverence. Confessions increased. Some laughed it off as superstition, but others, especially those burdened by secret guilt, felt uneasy standing before the crucifix. Bridget herself changed. She became more severe with herself, more devoted to penance and prayer. She fasted, gave alms, and urged repentance not with anger, but with sorrow. She wrote of Christ's pain not as distant history, but as something continually renewed by human indifference. Years later, Bridget would leave Sweden, travel to Rome, and become one of the most influential mystics in Christian history. Her visions would shape devotional life for centuries. But this vision, the one of the sinner and the crucifix, remained among the most unsettling. It was not about demons alone. It was about the danger of empty gestures. The man in the vision did not mock Christ openly. He simply approached him without humility. That, Bridget learned, was enough. Imagine holding something sacred while hiding a life of contradiction. Would you feel exposed or protected? Share your reflection in the comments and follow for more stories of faith and warning from history. As Bridget aged, she often returned in memory to that winter evening. She understood that sacred objects were not magical talismans. Their power lay in what they represented, and how the human soul approached them. The crucifix in the vision had not harmed the man, it had revealed him. This understanding became central to her teaching. True devotion, she believed, required alignment between outward action and inward repentance. Anything less risked spiritual blindness. After her death in 1373, Bridget was canonized, and her revelations were recorded, studied, and debated. Some scholars questioned their imagery. Others defended their theological depths. But even critics admitted their impact was undeniable. The story of the sinner and the crucifix survived not because it frightened people, but because it challenged them. It forced believers to ask whether faith was performance or transformation. In medieval Sweden, fear of hell was common. What Bridget offered was something deeper. Awareness. Awareness that holiness was not passive. Awareness that Christ's suffering was not safely contained in the past. And awareness that touching the sacred without reverence might awaken truths no one was ready to face. So the next time you imagine a medieval chapel, cold stone, flickering candles, a silent crucifix, remember Saint Bridget kneeling in prayer, trembling not from cold, but from the weight of what she had seen. A vision not meant to condemn the sinner alone, but to warn all who dared approach the holy without humility. Would this vision have changed your life, or frightened you away from faith altogether? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and follow for more cinematic historical stories drawn from the shadows of the past.